All right, so two teams unplugged last night. Do we see more this evening? Welcome to the Sheet once again. Glad to have you aboard today. Our producer, Zach, is very nervous. You can understand why. Washington Capitals eliminating the Montreal Canadiens. Florida Panthers dusting the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5. So I want to talk to Pierre McGuire, who's coming up here in about 15 minutes, about what's next for both teams. And, look, these are two teams that are in different positions of their cycle, right? Their winning cycle. The Tampa Bay Lightning have already been to the top of the mountain a couple of times. I know we've talked a lot about John Cooper. We started that with Wish the other day here on the program on Tuesday, and it's kind of gathered some momentum, and we continue to talk about what's next for the Tampa bench boss. But the thing about the Montreal Canadiens and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the difference is stark and obvious. I'll admit it. I'm not breaking any news here. These are two teams that are in very, very different positions. Thanks, Marek. So I look at all things in life, and this goes back to first-year university and Aristotle. Things exist in two states, Jeffrey. Oh, really, Professor? What's that? Things exist in a state of either potentiality or actuality. The thing actually is what it is, or it is becoming what it is going to be. Right now, the Tampa Bay Lightning are who they are. That's it. That's the team, right? They're really good. They have some elite players that are going into the Hockey Hall of Fame, but you've seen the great performances. You've seen the great coaching. You've seen the great goaltending. You've seen the great and clutch scoring. Yeah, we'll get to Kucherov in a second here. But, that's who they are. Meanwhile, the Montreal Canadiens are still existing very much in a state of potentiality, which is why, look, you'll look at the Tampa Bay Lightning and you'll say 3 first-round exits, maybe time for some decisions here from Julien Brisebois. And you'll look at the Montreal Canadiens and say, okay, so there's a first-round exit. And if they go out the next 2 seasons in the first round, we'll still say that's fine because they're not who they're going to be. Marty St. Louis said, I'm going to paraphrase here probably horribly, Marty St. Louis, head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, yesterday after the game said something along the lines of, yeah, the pain really hurts, but it's nowhere as good as it's going to feel when we get to where we want to go. And that's true. That's true for the Montreal Canadiens. There is still a sense of optimism around this team, and there should be. Sure, there's some decisions on the horizon for the Montreal Canadiens. I'm sure right now Kent Hughes is, and probably already has been thinking about, okay, so who's my second-line center next year? But the Montreal Canadiens are in a good spot. Tampa Bay Lightning, it's decision time. They can continue to roll along and have really good seasons, and every now and then they may win a round in the playoffs. But as we've talked about in the last couple of years, if you've had any questions about the balance of power in the state of Florida changing, last year's Stanley Cup victory, and maybe more specifically, the way the Florida Panthers handled the Tampa Bay Lightning ends all discussion. Ends all discussion. That's it. Florida, as we talked about the other day, are reminding everybody why they're the defending Stanley Cup champions. And that is why we mentioned on the program the other day, after the Maple Leafs got blanked by the Ottawa Senators, kind of doesn't really even matter in a lot of ways. If they beat Ottawa, maybe today, maybe Saturday, they win the series, because the moment to say we're a different team has now come and gone. We got a big show coming up and a lot to get to today. Yesterday was a fascinating day. It was a fascinating number of games. The Winnipeg Jets lose Mark Scheifele, not heading to St. Louis after Braden Shen and Radek Faksa just taking runs at double nickels on Winnipeg. A lot to get to today. Daily Outlines presented by our friends and partners at FanDuel. FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook app provider, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. That is our friends at FanDuel. And coming up on the program today, Pierre McGuire will stop by. We'll get into the teams that have left us and who could be leaving us as early as this evening. We should probably park some time with Pierre to talk about the situation in Vancouver. Very curious his thoughts on the Jim Rutherford press conference, Tocchet saying peace out, and what is going to happen with Quinn Hughes of the Vancouver Canucks, and the very latest on the playoffs tonight. We should probably park some time too, even though it's been a couple of days, and talk about the New Jersey Devils and what's next for them. It's not as if they have major impending UFAs. Although you can make the argument that Jake Allen, considering how he came in and pulled off some great performances for New Jersey, is a big decision for the New Jersey Devils, because if he hits the market, there'll be a lot of teams. Thank you very much. Interested in the services of Jake Allen. Oh, by the way, hey Zach, you'll like this one. Now, this one popped up on Reddit like 2 weeks ago when David Savard announced that this was going to be his last season, and at the end of these playoffs, he was calling it a career. I live for stuff like this, and I'm sure Pierre will enjoy this one. So Izaki on Reddit Hockey points this out. For the first time since 1967, and that was really nice yesterday with the hugs and everything with David Savard and the handshakes. For the first time since 1967, there won't be a player named Savard playing in the NHL. Or Serge Savard, 1967 to 1983. Or as Denny Savard. God, was he ever good. Oh, him, Larmer, Secord, Chicago. God, were they ever good. Denny Savard, 1980 to 1997. Mark Savard, 1997 to 2011. And then David Savard, 2011 to 2025. Next season will be the first season without a Savard in the lineup. Did I mention, Zach, that this streak started in 1967, and even though there's a Savard behind the bench with your Toronto Maple Leafs, there will not be a Savard on the ice. I mean, unless there's like some mystery Savard that some team's going to call up and sign here and start in the NHL. The league will be without a Savard going back to 1967, starting next year with the exit of David Savard from the Montreal Canadiens in the NHL. So maybe the curse is lifted. Right? Maybe the Hillman Hex, the legendary Larry Hillman Hex, has been lifted now that there'll be no Savards. I don't know. I'm reaching for it here. But I'm trying to give you something to hang on to here, Zach, with your Toronto Maple Leafs that are headed into the Canadian Tire Center tonight. Mm-hmm. And I know you're very excited about this because the Maple Leafs and their fans don't have a default position of nervous, right?
No. Wait, so let me clarify here. Does that mean, is he out now, so it means we could win this year now, or do I have to wait till next
Contract doesn't expire till the end of June, so technically he's still employed, but he is not technically playing right now.
Okay.
That's all the Maple Leafs needed was to get rid of all the Savards. Serge, Danny, Mark, now David. Done.
Okay. That's all I need. I feel much better now. Yeah, thank you.
Well, you should. By the way, one thing I do want to mention, you know how I've been griping about diving? I kind of let it go for a little while, and I'm just like, okay, I know, drawing penalties, but then you see it like every single game, every single night. Finally, and it was in an offsetting situation with Gabe Vilardi, Oscar Sundqvist gets called for embellishment. So he gets elbowed in the face by Gabe Vilardi. Vilardi goes off. I think the actual call was interference, wasn't even elbowing. And it gets called. It's a penalty. Vilardi's got the penalty, but Sundqvist grabs his mouth and then rolls around on the ice. And so I threw it out there, something along the lines of like every single night, every single team, and finally embellishment gets called. And there was a whole litany of, oh, is he embellishing the blood? Dummy. Hey, moron, you get hit in the face. And see what, like, it's just like the embellishment part is the rolling around on the ice. That is the no one's saying that he didn't get hit in the face. Of course he got hit in the face. It's all that, I'm going to say it, all that soccer stuff after.
Yeah. That's the stuff that bothers me. Like,
me too.
Oh my gosh. Remember in the World Cup, I know you're not really watching other sports as much, and I appreciate that, but like it was a couple of World Cups ago where Neymar had the one where he rolled like 20 feet forward after he got breathed on. Yeah. And I was like flailing around and stuff. The guy calls gives him the yellow card, and all of a sudden, whoa, he's good to go. Pops up. Like, get rid of that stuff. Get rid of the extra stuff on top. That's the stuff I hate. I know. Drive me nuts.
I know. I remember Paul Maurice. I know many fans that don't like the Florida Panthers may take exception to this, but I remember Paul Maurice. That was, no, it wasn't even Paul Maurice. It was John Pohl. I don't know if you remember John Pohl. John Pohl, American hockey player, cut his teeth playing in the St. Louis Blues organization, then went over to the Toronto Maple Leafs, played mainly with the Marlies. Really good player. And John Pohl told me once when I was doing color for the Marlies with John Bartlett, I'm like, what are the rules that Paul has for it? He goes, he snaps about diving. He's like, I will bench anyone on this team if you dive. He just like, we will not have this. And Johnny's like, he is beside himself about how much he hates diving. Now, having said that, Brad Marchand goes for a dip. And they get a 4-minute power play out of it. Maybe Paul Maurice feels a little bit differently. Nonetheless, it was good to see embellishment finally called last night in that St. Louis-Winnipeg game. All right. This segment, a presentation of RV Easy. Your motorhome or travel trailer isn't just for getaways, it's a moneymaker on wheels. Most RVs sit parked in the driveway. With RV Easy, you can rent out your motorhome or travel trailer and earn over $20,000 this year. Founded, owned, and operated by Canadians, RV Easy takes care of everything, including full insurance coverage provided for every rental. And best of all, you choose when to rent and set your own pricing. List your RV for free today at RVEZY.com. That's RVEZY.com. RV Easy. Rent your RV. Make money easy. With that, we'll get to the news of the day, which is always the games, but a lot going on off the ice in the NHL as well. Our good friend Pierre McGuire stops by the sheet once again. Pierre, first of all, thank you so much for stopping by. And I did think of you 2 weeks ago when I saw this. And I don't know if you've seen it or heard it, but stuff like this always makes me pause. And since, there's a part of our brains that are symbiote, I'm guessing you'll like this too. So this popped up on Hockey Reddit 2 weeks ago when David Savard announced that this was going to be his last season and the last playoffs. And yesterday was beautiful. The hugs and the handshakes and everything. David Savard, a very solid NHLer for a long time. So someone on Reddit, Izaki, points out, for the first time since 1967, Pierre, there will not be a player named Savard playing in the league. Serge Savard from 67 to 83, Denny Savard from 80 to 97, Mark from 97 to 2011, and David from 2011 now to 2025.
They forgot one.
Andre Savard.
Savard.
So Andres, okay, this is always, okay, we're going to get like really inside baseball here, folks. So I still maintain that the first trade between the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins was the Danny Paille deal. But people always go back to McNabb and Savard, but that was a free agent signing. And then Savard was a compensation for it. So does it actually count as a trade?
Fair point. Very good point. That's a good point, Jeff. But I wanted to bring up a couple things you were talking about before. You talked about John Pohl.
Yes.
John Pohl's wife was Chrissy Wendell Pohl.
Yes.
She was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame last year. She was as great a player as John was in the NHL, in the American Hockey League, and at the University of Minnesota. Nowhere near as good as his wife.
Oh, yeah.
Chrissy Wendell Pohl was one of the true trailblazers when it came to skill, finesse, and dominating the game. A magnificent international player and college player out of the University of Minnesota, but also for Team USA. And he talked about diving. And as soon as you said it, you could think of two people that I coached against that just abhorred diving. The late John Brophy. I coached against him in the East Coast Hockey League. He was in Hampton Roads. I was in Baton Rouge. And the other one, I coached against him in the NHL, the great late Pat Burns. Hated diving. Go look at the tape of him almost strangling Claude Lemieux.
Wouldn't send the trainer out. Oh,
during a playoff series.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. He refused to send the trainer out, didn't he? Like, no, just let him roll. You're not going out. No.
And Bob Gainey was there. Just stay on the bench. It's okay. Listen to the coach.
Well, see,
whenever you talk, I listen. You're like E.F. Hutton. When Jeff talks,
No. I've got everybody fooled. Trust me. It's just smoke and black mirrors. So can I pause a second here on John Brophy? Because we all think of John Brophy, and like my favorite story about John Brophy was when he was playing with the Long Island Ducks. The rink manager and Zamboni driver was Val James's father, legendary tough guy. And Brophy said to him, like, listen, if I'm ever in position to turn your kid pro and put him in the NHL, I'll do it. Now, he debuted with Buffalo, but then when John was in Toronto and he had a chance to call up Val James, that was him like honoring his word, going back to the Long Island Duck days of the East Coast League. That's what I think of when I think of John Brophy.
You may have to look this one up too, but I think now that you bring up Val James, I think he's the first ever person born in the state of Florida to play in the National Hockey League. I think he is.
Okay. I know he's the first American of color to play in the NHL.
But
I did know he was the first Floridian.
Florida-born native to play in the National Hockey League.
I love how we're just going into like way deep water here early, and there's like, what's next with the Habs? What's next with Tampa? What's going to happen to what's New Jersey going to do here? What's happening with Quinn Hughes? Was Val James the first Floridian to play? Okay, let's get that is interesting, and I am going to look that up. You've given my brain a tickle here, Pierre, as always. So here's what I want to get to, and I do want to get to embellishment here in a couple of seconds. But Montreal exits. What a grand season for the Montreal Canadiens. Sure, we don't know who's going to be 2C next year, but nonetheless, Kent Hughes, there's wonderful things on the horizon for Montreal. The Tampa Bay Lightning exit in 5 against the Florida Panthers. I made the point about teams existing in 2 states, potentiality and actuality. This is Tampa. This is who they are. Montreal is still in the state of being a potentially great team here. I look at Montreal and say, great season. What do you say when you look at Tampa right now?
I'm disappointed. I thought that they were a team that was going to bring it. I understand the stuff with Brandon Hagel. I thought that for the 3rd straight year, Andrei Vasilevsky got out goaltended by whomever he played against. And in this case, it was Sergei Bobrovsky was a better goaltender than Andrei Vasilevsky was in this series in particular. And I also thought last year as well. Both series last year and this year ended in 5 games. I never thought this year would be 5 games. I thought it would probably go 7 for a lot of other reasons. I thought the addition of Ryan McDonough was huge for Tampa Bay. And I thought Ryan played his derriere off. There wasn't enough from Nikita Kucherov. And I don't understand that, Jeff. And there's one game when he was magnificent. Jake Gensel was great. That was game 2 when they won. But outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot there. And I don't know why that is. I'm concerned for Tampa long term. I'm concerned for Tampa.
I am concerned for them long term as well. Although I'll be honest with you, part of me looks at this and says, isn't this just the byproduct of playing in the Atlantic? Like if the Tampa Bay Lightning played in the Metropolitan and had the path that they would have to get to the conference final, what would we be saying about the Tampa Bay Lightning? Essentially what I'm saying is, if you were to rank all the teams in the Eastern Conference, where would you put Tampa? And would you look at them and say, yeah, that's an out in 5 in the first round?
No, I don't. I would not. But here's what concerns me. I got to think Detroit will be better next year, Jeff. And I know we've been saying this for a while, but I think they'll be better. I think Buffalo will be better next year. I know people in Buffalo. No chance. I think they will. I look at Montreal's going to be better. Toronto's not falling off. I don't think Florida's going to fall off very much. Florida, under the radar, Florida did some stuff this spring that people aren't talking about yet in terms of college free agents and going out and getting players, older players, to come into their organization that are playing in Charlotte right now. And people will find out down the road. They've done some pretty good work there. Like a year ago, who was talking about Mackie Samoskevich? Nobody's talking about Mackie Samoskevich. No, they weren't. So he went through the training process they put their guys through down in Charlotte. There's like 4 or 5 guys that are like that down there now. So I'm just saying, Florida's not going anywhere. I'm worried about Tampa long term because of what you said. They're in the Atlantic. It's a tough beast of a division.
It's a really tough sled. A couple of points on some of those teams that you mentioned. The nice thing about having you on is we can bounce all over the place. I'm with you on Buffalo. I would not be surprised if we saw Buffalo this off-season change course and move young players for veterans. This team is too young. You're Lindy Ruff. You're looking like, how many green bananas can we have on one bench? Like, no. We need some more veteran players here. I think they probably look at their blue line and say, this is too young. What do we need to do here? Same thing up front. Detroit's fascinating because, I think we all put on our Steve Yzerman Dakota rings the other day on the heels of Dylan Larkin saying, like, where were the troops? Like, we said send for the posse at trade deadline time and nothing came. And Steve Yzerman essentially went out without saying Dylan Larkin by name and said, you guys didn't deserve a trade. I would have, but you guys didn't deserve it. How do you see how do you see that dynamic? I mean, Yzerman didn't use many words, but it was pretty obvious the point that he was trying to get across. You need to be better. When you're better, coffee is for closers, right, Pierre? Coffee's for closers.
I was talking to my partner, Jimmy Murphy, about this on our show, and I said, you know what? Dylan Larkin's a good kid, but he just put his boots in the deep end. I don't know if he's getting out. That's not the right way to do it in Detroit. If you have a problem, you go behind closed doors and you talk to Steve Yzerman. I respect him. Dylan, I think the world of him. But, with Jimmy Devellano there, with Todd McLellan there, with, Steve Yzerman there, you got a lot of winning power there. Dylan's never won. Not in that league. He's never won. So I don't know if that was a prudent move for him. But I would say this. I do think Detroit will be proactive. I do. I really believe they'll be proactive in the offseason. And it'll make their team better. One of the things they got to answer is what's going on in goal. They got to get better in goal, and they know it. And I think they got to get better on defense. And I think they know that too.
Okay, back to the playoffs here, and what's next? The concern about Tampa. Listen, I think we all have the soap and warm water feeling for the Montreal Canadiens. I know that they're still not a perfect team, but everyone's feeling good about them. I think it was great to have that building and those fans back in the playoffs. Man, it was so fantastic. And we got one of the classics. Like, we got a rock and roll game last Friday. It was wild and bench brawls and all of it. And the next game, it's the big hits and Wilson and Carrier. And so what's next for the Montreal Canadiens? And is the big question, who's the second line center here?
That is the question. You learn a lot about your team in the playoffs, as you talked about, Jeff. So what the Montreal Canadiens learned, whether it's Jeff Gordon or Kent Hughes or Marty St. Louis, we're naked in the 2-hole. We need to be clothed in the 2-hole because teams are going to start loading up on Slavkovsky, on Suzuki, on obviously Caulfield. And there's going to be a physical total play. They can't play that way for 82 games and have anything left for the playoffs. So they need an elite second line center. They have more than enough assets to go out and trade for it. They also they'll have enough money that they'll be able to buy it if they want to buy it. It's just not that easy to do in the province of Quebec because of taxation issues and education issues, just language issues. That's the reality. I'm from there. I can say that, and I say it comfortably. It's not a problem. I used to live there. So I do think they can trade. I think they can trade for it, and I think they will. Internally, they put themselves in an amazing position. I know but this is for our viewers and listeners out there. Jacob Fowler's the real deal. Like, I know there were NHL games.
How far away? How far away?
I was watching in Cleveland. I'm going to say about a year, maybe less. But I'm telling you right now, he's a real deal. Watch him play last night in Cleveland. Like, I watched it. He's a real deal. And I watch him a ton at Boston College, my friend. A ton. He's really good.
New Jersey Devils exited this week as well. Like, look, you look at decisions on the horizon here for Tom Fitzgerald, and there's Jake Allen in net, who, man, you want to talk about having a really good year as a backup. Jake Allen was excellent. Luke Hughes as an RFA. But interestingly enough, all the noise around New Jersey in the offseason is revolving around the number one defenseman in Vancouver, as we're marrying these two together. Quick thought perhaps on what's next for New Jersey, and then let's dovetail that with how much, like, I don't even begin how to phrase this. How much pressure is there now on not the Vancouver Canucks, but Quinn Hughes? Like, all of a sudden, Rutherford, by putting out that he wants to play with his brother, Rick Tocchet piecing out on the organization, and we know the nature of the relationship between those two. There's a lot of admiration and respect. Quick thought on New Jersey, and how are you feeling about Quinn Hughes these days?
Well, Quinn is obviously one of the game breakers in the league today. Everybody knows that. He's an important part of any organization in terms if you want to try to win. That being said, if in fact Jimmy wants to trade him and is prepared to trade him to New Jersey, along with Patrick Alvin, the general manager, there's a relationship that I don't know how much our everyday viewers and listeners know, Tommy Fitzgerald went to Providence College. So did Jimmy Hughes. That's the father of these young Hughes boys. So there's a relationship there that was developed back in the mid-1980s that I'm not sure too many people are aware of. The other part is that I do think they want to play together. And that was speculated a long time ago when Luke was, the potential to draft Luke was there. Because it wasn't Tommy Fitzgerald that drafted Jack Hughes. It was Ray Shero that drafted Jack Hughes, the late Ray Shero. So then Tommy took over for Ray when Ray got let go, and obviously he took Luke Hughes. So, now Quinn's out there on the horizon. Do I think he could be a member of the New Jersey Devils? I do. Jimmy never would have put that out there unless he thought the same thing. What's the price point to get him? How much pressure's on Vancouver? A lot. You don't have Rick talking. You don't maybe have your franchise player on the back end. And, you had a lot of internal discourse this year in terms of players in the dressing room. I think there's a lot of pressure on the Vancouver Canucks.
I'll be honest with you, Pierre. Like, one of the things that I wonder about here is I don't know how Quinn Hughes, considering Jim Rutherford essentially put an expiration date on him. I know he tried to salvage it a little bit by saying, well, maybe we'll just trade for the other brothers, and everyone went tampering, mild or otherwise. I don't know, considering this captain may have an expiration date on him, may not be committed there long term, more than he's committed to going to play with his brothers. I don't know how he comes back as captain. I've been thinking about this a lot.
I think that's a great point. It's hard. I don't know what happened in the dressing room. Out of respect to him, I've never once asked him about it. I've never asked Jim Rutherford about it. And I haven't asked any. I was just at the celebration of life for Ray Shero the other day in Boston, and there were a few Vancouver scouts there. And I didn't ask them about it either, just out of respect, and it wasn't appropriate in that setting. Sure. Something happened there this year. And does anybody really know the story unless they...
The whispers have kind of been out there for a while. Like the minute that there's a new owner, and we saw this with Ottawa with Michael Andlauer, the minute there's a new owner in the NHL, a lot of people will raise who is the new owner going to bring in? Who are the owner's guys? Who are the owner's people here? And we saw it in Ottawa, and it wasn't long after Michael Andlauer officially bought the Ottawa Senators that longtime manager with his junior operation, Steve Staios, officially joined the mix, even though Staios had been already working with the Edmonton Oilers of the Ontario Hockey League. And I think when Ryan Smith was awarded Utah and got all the players from Arizona, I think we all wondered, okay, so I know that they wanted some consistency. So Armstrong stayed and Tourigny stayed, but you're always wondering what the long-term play is going to be. And we all know that there's a closeness between Ryan Smith and John Cooper, and we know that there is an affiliation as well, or a kind association between him and Ray Whitney. And so we'll see where all of that heads. But, the first question is still going to be, is John Cooper coming back with the Tampa Bay Lightning? Sorry for the technical problems, Pierre, mon ami. We are all settled now, and technology is our friend, allegedly. And we are solved, and we are back together. So just the one point that I was trying to sort of get out there was, it's got to be really tough for Quinn Hughes to come back as a C when every single day now he's going to get the question, how committed are you to this organization past the expiration of your contract?
I totally agree. It kind of reminds me a little bit, it's different but similar to what Sidney Crosby went through last year. If you go think about it, Crosby didn't sign an extension in the summer, but people were wondering, are you committed to the franchise and the rebuild, or do you want to move on? And if you look at the first three games, I think the first three games for the Pittsburgh Penguins last year, in Detroit, in Toronto, in Montreal. So he's playing in 3 original 6 markets, all on the road. How do you think that would have been for the Pittsburgh Penguins to start the season in those 3 cities, not having a contract done? They found a way to get it done because Sid committed himself to the team. I think Vancouver would be the very same situation if you don't hear something positive out of Quinn Hughes in terms of, I'm fully committed to being part of the Vancouver Canucks.
We'll see Washington and Carolina in the next round. And I want to get your thoughts on the Washington Capitals. I thought it was fascinating this year, the way that the Capitals just kept on rolling along and mowing down teams. And we are all focusing on the Alexander Ovechkin-Gretzky chase, which included that Sunday afternoon at UBS in grand fashion, albeit in a losing cause. But Washington's on top of the conference, and nobody gave them a shot all season long. Now they've taken care of the Montreal Canadiens in 5. They move on to the second round. How do you feel about the Washington Capitals? And could you kind of make the point that Tom Wilson was their MVP in that first round?
Tom Wilson was fantastic in the first round, number one, Jeff. Number two, is there a player that's improved more 5-on-5 than Dylan Strome in the National Hockey League? I'm not sure there is. And then the third one is, how many people really know how good Connor McMichael is?
Oh,
how many people really know how good Connor McMichael is? Unless you're a Washington Capitals fan and you're watching him every day, he's buried because of the love of Ovechkin, which totally makes sense.
Sure.
The physicality of Tom Wilson, the addition of Ryan Leonard, the development, obviously, of Strome. He's overshadowed. Like, he's so deep in this thing, it's ridiculous. And that guy may have been as good as any offensive player they had in the first round.
Can I make a quick point here about Connor McMichael? I'm really glad you brought up his name. Pierre, how many players have you seen in your history in the NHL ruined by being rushed to the league? Plenty. We've all seen it. And I'll tell you what, the fact that Connor McMichael is where he's at after, and like, listen, you talk to his agent, he'll say the same thing. You talk to him, like when they first called him up, like they needed him, they needed bodies, and he wasn't ready for it. And you saw it. But that's a guy that initially was rushed to the league, didn't work out. Like there were really awkward moments with Connor McMichael originally, and then it was back to AHL Hershey for a couple of years, go find the game. A lot of guys are ruined by that. And I think that's a real testament to A, Connor McMichael, B, Hershey Bears, Todd Nelson, etc., and the Washington Capitals for sticking with them and not saying, we tried, it didn't work, we move on.
As a kid that grew up in Montreal, I watched the Montreal Voyageurs and the Nova Scotia Voyageurs for years and years and years. Guys didn't make it to the National Hockey League till they did their penance in the American Hockey League. It's the same thing when Lou Lamoriello had the New Jersey Devils on top of the NHL mountain. All these guys, except for Scotty Niedermayer, went to one place. It was called Lou U, and that was the American Hockey League. It might have been in Albany, it might have been in Lowell, might have been in Manchester, it might have been in Utica, but they all went to Lou U, every single one of them. There are actually two. Scotty Gomez didn't, and Scotty Niedermayer did. Everybody else did. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big part of it. And then the Detroit Red Wings. Rather have my players overripe than underdeveloped, to your point. And that Connor McMichael was on the precipice of being ruined because he got rushed.
As a quick aside, that Voyageurs team, like all those Montreal, Nova Scotia teams, if you would have put any of those teams in the NHL, where would they have been in the standings?
They would have been a playoff team. I can tell you that right now. Like Ken Dryden was a goalie. People don't, you know this, but a lot of people don't. Ken Dryden, the game that he played, his last American Hockey League game, I think he lost 8-2 or 7-1 playing in the American Hockey League. And everybody's like, what are they doing? They're bringing that guy up. And then obviously he goes on the roll and the rest is history. Their teams were amazing. There's a place in Halifax, Jeff, for those that are hockey maniacs like you and I, called the Midtown Tavern. All the players, the team was in Halifax, used to congregate after practice at the Midtown Tavern. The memorabilia on the wall back in the day was phenomenal. And you go look at all the players that went through there. Larry Robinson, Doug Riseborough, Doug Jarvis. Like, go look at it. It's a murderer's row. Ken Dryden. It's a murderer's row of players. It's unbelievable. The guys that played in the American Hockey League for Montreal.
Everybody went. Everybody did their time. And it was a team that could have competed in the NHL. That's how good it was. The St. Louis Blues didn't win the game last night, but it wasn't for a lack of trying and physicality. Boy, did Braden Shen catch Mark Scheifele. And then, like, first of all, I don't know how Scheifele got up from that hit to try to engage. And then Radek Faksa, he will not travel to St. Louis for the next game. Do you have a thought on what has turned into the roughest series in the opening round, St. Louis and Winnipeg?
it started in game one. I watched every single game in this series. It started in game one, and I said it on different venues that I thought when it got back to St. Louis, it would go back to Winnipeg tied. I think it's a 7-game series. Sometimes you win the battle early on, but you don't win the war. For Winnipeg, they were up 3-2, so they're clearly winning the battle. I just don't know if they've won the war. This is probably going 7. It's become a very difficult situation if they can't get Mark Scheifele back. Obviously, Kyle Connor's been huge for them. Nemestikov had a gigantic game. The turning point I thought in that game, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, the 2-on-1 shorthanded.
Yes.
2-on-1 shorthanded.
Yeah.
And everybody saying, what a save by Connor Hellebuck. Let's just say that's not Oscar Sundqvist. Let's just say that's Alexander Steen. Let's just put Alexander Steen over there instead of Oscar Sundqvist. It's 2-1. St. Louis is winning, and they scored a shorthanded goal in Winnipeg. And that, could you imagine what the fans would have been like then?
Oh.
But they didn't score, and it's a totally different game because of that.
Nice situation Steen's walking into, as general manager.
I'm a huge Steen fan. So it's ironic. I guess this means irony. Steener's father was such a good player in Winnipeg for
Thomas.
so long. Thomas. And I had the good fortune, maybe it wasn't such good fortune of coaching when he was playing, but Thomas was an amazing player. And so for Alex to be involved with St. Louis and them to be in this series, I think is pretty amazing. He's stepping into a really good situation. Their laundry list of young players, as you know, is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Their young players in St. Louis are phenomenal going forward.
They've either drafted or traded for them. Alex Steen's walking into a really good spot here. A couple of things quickly for tonight. Maple Leafs fans are leading 3-2. Maple Leafs fans are nervous as hell about this. I mean, they've seen it all before. Like I was making the point earlier this week that, a couple of nights ago, that was the night for the Maple Leafs to show that they're a different team. They're at home. They've had rest. Everything's controlled. I mean, you coach, what it's like. Take all the excuses away. Take all the excuses for losing away so you can just focus on the game. And they got blanked. What do you expect tonight?
I expect the top players of the team to play really well. I don't think there'll be a lot of space for Ottawa to make plays. This is where coaching really does matter. So you go out and you hire a Stanley Cup winning coach. He understands the scrutiny. He understands the importance of big moments. He understands he's got control of his bench. He's going to be on the road, so he's going to have to do some gamesmanship type of stuff. Either pick the pace of the game up or slow the pace of the game down. Faceoffs are going to matter a ton in this game, I believe, because I think there'll be a lot of them. There won't be a lot of room on the ice to make plays. But Toronto played a certain identity style for 82 games this year, and it was a playoff style. They were prepared to play in this series. Now they have to prove it in Game 6. If not, you work all year to get a Game 7 on home ice. You can't cry over spilt milk. Try to get it done in 6, and if you can't, you got to play Game 7 at home and embrace the moment.
Does Edmonton finish it off tonight? I can't help. Again, rightly or wrongly, Edmonton wins this thing. We're going to go back to that Byfield play where he didn't chip it out and tried to skate it out instead, led to the turnover, etc. Edmonton, it's blood in the water, right? And Connor McDavid smells blood in the water. It's trouble. Your thoughts on this one tonight, Game 6?
You just said it. I don't have to say any more. Let's be efficient here. There's blood in the water, and McDavid and Draisaitl are sharks, and they know it. There's blood in the water. They got a reprieve from the governor.
Big time. Yeah.
They got a reprieve from the governor, and so now you take advantage of it.
One final thought here. I was having a conversation earlier this year about Evan Bouchard. I'm curious because you've lived these conversations. Is Evan Bouchard, again, we understand, he'll score 2 goals, but he'll be a -3, whatever. We understand all that. Is Evan Bouchard one of the rare players that are more valuable in arbitration than free agency?
The answer would be yes.
Because his ARB number would be huge.
You would lose in arbitration because of the offensive numbers.
Yes.
You would lose an arbitration. You'd have to have a heck of an attorney to get yourself to win that arbitration. That'd be a really tough one because the numbers are pretty. They throw the plus minus out. Let's focus in on the goals, the assists, and the big moments.
Yeah.
Let's do a comparable chart. I'm not going to say the person because I don't think it's fair. There's somebody that I think potentially could be a Hall of Fame player.
Hmm.
But if you look at his numbers, the offensive numbers are amazing. Major awards won, yes. But if you go scrutinize the plus minus, you're like, whoa. And there's only one reason why. He played on some bad teams, and it wasn't his fault, but he got stuck on the ice in tough moments. And so the plus minus doesn't legislate for that. And I can't say any more than that.
Okay. God, I love being on with you. Okay, give me 2 seconds here. I'm going to grab a picture that when we do the wide shot, you can see it, but we have the split, so you can't. Give me 1 second here, Pierre.
Okay.
Hang on. Okay. I love that point that you're making because it allows me to talk about this goaltender.
Yes.
Gilles Meloche. Now,
my friend, Gilles.
I have always maintained. Now, Gilles played, as you can see here, in those beautiful, look at that beautiful Seals outfit.
Originally drafted by Chicago Blackhawks. By the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yes. And unfortunately for Gilles Meloche, played on a number of really bad teams. It was the Seals. It was the Barons. It was a bad North Stars squad. And I always maintain that if Gilles Meloche would have played on any of those powerhouse teams of the 70s, the Flyers, the Habs, the Islanders, the Bruins, this guy would be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Mario
Lemieux would agree with you. They're best friends. And here's one other thing. I'll give you a quick Gilles Meloche story.
Let's go.
We won the Stanley Cup in 1991 in Minnesota in the old building where I used to play in the Bloomington Sports Arena. And we were walking down the tunnels, just Jill and I. And all this, we won game 6-8-0. Yeah. So we knew after the first 40 minutes of the game we were winning. And we get to the bench, and Jill just melts in my arms. I thought he was like having a heart attack or something. And he started crying. I go, what's up? He goes, I can't believe I'm going to get to touch the Stanley Cup. It was so amazing. It was so amazing. And it's to your point, like this guy was so much better than his record because he was on bad teams.
Yeah.
He was so much better. People don't even know that.
I know. Honestly, Gilles Meloche should be when we talk about Dryden, and when we talk about Bernie Parent, and we talk about I don't know, take your pick, Jerry Cheevers.
Jerry Cheevers. Use Jerry Cheevers. Use all those guys from the 70s that were so good.
Yeah.
You're 100% right.
Gilles Meloche was right there, but he played on the Seals and the Barons. He didn't play on the Habs and the Bruins. He didn't play on the.
So that's why when you go to arbitration, you throw that plus minus thing out. Here we go. Here we go.
Well, we're getting historical here really quickly. The passing of Ed Van Impe. Younger fans may not understand. You mentioned drafted by Chicago was Gilles Meloche. Ed Van Impe was drafted by Chicago. Was the runner-up to Bobby Orr in the Calder voting for 1967. Was left exposed in the expansion draft. Philly grabbed him. Was a tough-as-nails defenseman for the Philadelphia Flyers, punctuated by coming out of the penalty box and making a beeline for Valeri Harlamov in the 1976 game that the Philadelphia Flyers were not going to lose. Do you have a thought on Ed Van Impe?
He was tough as nails. He blocked a ton of shots. It's amazing that you would ask me about Ed. Ray Shero and I, the late Ray Shero, in the summer times, we'd go to his apartment in Boston and we'd watch old tapes of the Flyers. And you see all those tough Flyers. And, obviously Ray's father was a coach of those teams. And we talk about Terry Crisp and the value of Terry Crisp, or we talk about the Watson brothers, or we talk about Bob Clark or Reggie Leach or Billy Barber, all these guys, Oris Kinderchuk, all these amazing guys. The one guy that always came up was Ed Van Impe because he was so steady. You know what you're getting every single game from Ed Van Impe. And I wasn't coaching in the league then. I was just a kid. But now that I've coached and been around the league for almost 36 years, we used to watch those tapes, Ray and I, and just be like, wow, look at how consistent that guy was. It was amazing how consistent he was.
Wayne Malloyne. I don't know if you remember that. And it was a defenseman with the Seals who very famously. So Wayne Malloy defends like 5'8", and he didn't have much of a shot. And I remember reading an interview years ago, and he was talking about somehow he found himself on the power play, and he wound up to take a shot, and Van Impe went down to block it, hit him in the face, knocked out 6 of his teeth, split his tongue, and then he said, "We thought Van Impe was done for the game. Who comes out in the third period? Ed Van Impe." And Wayne Malloy was like, "This guy is the toughest player I've ever seen in the NHL." Ed Van Impe.
That's great.
Just
what
awesome.
A great story. What an awesome story.
Wayne Malloy. I bet when you woke up, you didn't think you were going to hear that name, Pierre, but there we go.
See, I think of Joey Johnston in Seattle land or in Seal land. I think of Teddy Hampson. I think of Carl Vadnais and Joe Malash. Those are the California Golden Seals I think of.
Craig Patrick?
A little bit, but he was more Kansas City scout, I think.
Yeah, I just think of all with the white blades, with the white boots. Which
the late Carl Vadnais had those white skates, and he still. I remember going on the road scouting when they say, "I don't wear white skates for Christ's sake in the league."
But it wasn't just white. Like they also had like this green and blue boot as well. Like in a lot of ways. Like I know Charlie Finley was like crazy owner and all that, but like from a NHL fashion point of view, like they were the Sharks before the Sharks. They were painted skates before. Like now everyone's doing painted skates. Like Seals were doing this in the late 60s. Oh, by the way, as I let you go here, one more final thing. I'm keeping you way too long. I just want to point out where you were right. So, the first player born in Florida to play in the NHL is Val James, Ocala, Florida, February 14th, 1957 birth date. Made his NHL debut with the Sabres in the 81-82 season. You're bang on. Valmore James, well done. Here endeth the lesson from Pierre McGuire. Thanks, bud. We'll talk next week.
I can't wait, Jeff. Take care. Bye-bye.
The great Pierre McGuire joins us here on the sheet. Like that was a lot, and man, was I ever greedy about like Pierre's time, especially when we had our technical difficulties. But I got to get into Joe Malash story, and then I got to hear a Joe Malash story about him breaking down and saying, "I'm finally gonna like honestly, dude. Trust me, I know there's like a huge generation gap between us, but one day when I'm long gone and I'm just like a memory to some, not many." You'll go like, yeah, Marek was always going on about Joe Malash, about how good this guy was. I don't know. We're 27. I don't know how good Joe Malash really was. I'm telling you, the guy should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. That's how good he is.
I don't know if you are familiar with like the memes or the like this like trend where it's like guys get together and they sit around. It's like their girlfriends ask, "What do you guys do?" and they just sit around and say old like baseball player, hockey player, basketball players, just other guys' names for hours. That's basically what the podcast is when we have Pierre on. It's
I love
you two.
it.
Like I'm sitting here and you two like say one person and then it's like a ladder. Like it's like, oh look, what about that guy on that team? And then you just go further and further back. It's amazing to see how far it goes too.
So the What Chaos show, like what Bean and Pete do every year is they do a 24-hour marathon, which is like just like torture test. I've always wondered. I got to ask Pierre if he'd want to do it one day, and I'd want you to produce it. I've always wondered if Pierre, how long Pierre and I could go, just doing story for story for story for story for story, and to see how many people. Like I don't know if it'd be interesting to anybody. I think I'd be interested in his stories. I don't know if he'd be interested in any of mine, but I would just love to do that, to see like how long Pierre and I could just go back and forth, old story for old story. Now, his frame of reference is a lot more than mine. Like, his frame of reference, like, that's the one thing I've always admired about Pierre. Like, he swims in deep water with his stories. And a lot of it is firsthand, too, right? Like, I'm in the kiddie pool making splashing noise, like, oh, I'm all that, right? Like, it's, you know the old saying, it's always noisiest in the shallow end of the pool. You know, out at the other end of the pool, it's quiet. That's where the deep water is. It's a good metaphor for life, actually. It's always noisiest in the shallowest end of the pool. Use that for bait for Twitter next time someone gets on you. Like, oh yeah, it's always noisy in the shallow end. Out in the deep end, it's nice and quiet. That's where Pierre is. Pierre's out in that land. Anyhow,
you're gonna. And actually, I'm not gonna say it. Let's just let it be because I was gonna say something real dumb there. No, I can't say it.
Were you gonna say something dumb or hockey dumb? Because there's a difference. Was it hockey dumb?
No, dumb, like dumb. Let's move on. Now, you can say it tomorrow if it happens.
You caught yourself. No, your mother and I are very proud of you, Zach. You caught yourself. You're censoring yourself now. Good job, young man.
There was something so dumb about to come out of my mouth. Keep moving. I'm sure people have an idea of what I was gonna go towards, but anyways,
really?
Keep going.
All right, save it. All right, save it for the password protected show. Then we'll do it. Save it for your after dark show. All right, we got games tonight. Let's wrap this puppy up here. We got games tonight. The sheet is powered by FanDuel, folks. Home of the 7-game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you're aware, but there's a big game in Toronto. Oh, no, in Ottawa tonight. It is a Game 6, and I want to pick up on that in a couple of moments. Actually, no, let's do this one. Games tonight. Toronto, Ottawa, Game 6, Canadian Tire Center, Stolars versus Ullmark. I'm getting all my scripts wrong here. No one said I was good at this. I got totally distracted talking about Gilles Meloche stories with Pierre. Vegas faces off against Minnesota, and you saying dumb things. Vegas faces off against Minnesota, Game 6, XL Energy Center. Philip Gustafson starts. Aiden Hill starts. No Pavel Dorofeev. When you talk about like the surprise player of the season, I know I tend to go on about Alexei Protas with Washington, but man, what a season by Pavel Dorofeev. Quote, out of nowhere. Victor Olofsson will take his spot in the Vegas lineup. This is Game 6. Vegas can close out tonight. Dallas and Colorado, don't look now, but the Stars can close this one out without Heiskanen, without Jason Robertson. Ottinger versus Mackenzie Blackwood in this one. Come on, Gabe Landeskog, give us one more command moment. And then the Los Angeles Kings face off against the Edmonton Oilers. This one does have that impending doom for LA, that they had their moment, those first couple of games, and then getting it back to Edmonton, all of a sudden, the wheels come off the wagon. The botched goalie interference call by Jim Hiller, and then, unfortunately for LA, hate to keep pounding on the play, but the Byfield play. All right, those are your games tonight. Time now for the Crispy Inbox. Presented by the Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 Portable Glass Air Fryer. Get ready to get hungry.
Meet the first of its kind. The Ninja Crispy Portable Cooking System. The power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand. So you can cook big or small batches. Just prep it, crisp it, serve it, and store it all in one.
Okay, it is an all-in-one system that includes 4-quart, 6-cup Tupperware glass containers, 2 storage lids. The Ninja Crispy is thermal shock resistant and can go from frozen to crispy in minutes. With the Crispy Power Pod, you get the power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand. The 4-quart container fits 4 pounds of chicken or veggies. Cook a personal-sized meal, folks, in 7 minutes in the 6-cup container. Max crisp, bake, air fry, and recrisp with the Ninja Crispy. You can prep, cook, and store anything from crispy favorites to one-dish meals. Visit their website in the link in the show description, and stay tuned for your chance to win a free Ninja Crispy. We are finishing off today's program with the Ninja Crispy Inbox. What do we got today?
This one was inspired by coach conversation over the last couple of days and some names out there. Jeff, this one says, "Hey Jeff, I was just wondering what your thoughts are on all the recent coaching changes. As a Maple Leafs fan, I was super excited when Craig Berube was hired, but I was also intrigued by how many high-end coaches were available and wanted all of them at once. Would a team like the Rangers or Bruins ever use their financial muscles to bring in more than one of Tocchet, Sullivan, Quenneville, and build an all-star team-style coaching staff? Thanks, Eric in Thornhill."
Well, they do that at international tournaments, and sort of everybody puts their egos aside. I remember, who was it? Which Team Canada orientation camp was it? It was good because I think the junior coach at that point of all the veterans that were on the bench was Lindy Ruff. So it was funny watching like Lindy Ruff pick up pucks. I'm like, this guy's like a 25-year coach. He's picking anyhow. So yeah, like obviously at international events that happens. But as far as the NHL goes, I don't know that I can see any of those coaches. Okay, let me just put something out here. And I don't mean this as an insult, because I think you need to have this to be a successful coach. Like, I think you need to have an ego, a healthy ego, to be a successful coach. Again, that's not a pejorative. Like, I'm saying that like that is a character trait you have to have. That is a personality feature that you need to have. I don't know that if you're Rick Tocchet or Mike Sullivan or Joel Quenneville, that you'd be comfortable saying, I will happily share this bench with you and we will collaborate on ideas and everything will be great because of this super brain trust that we have. I will tell you one thing about Rick Tocchet. The Toronto Maple Leafs, your Maple Leafs, Zach, a few years ago made him an offer to become the highest paid head coach in the NHL. Sorry, the highest paid assistant coach in the NHL. I believe the offer was $1 million to work with Sheldon Keefe for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Rick Tocchet said, no, thank you very much. I'm a head coach, and I'm also going to kick ass on TNT. That's the thing about all of it with a guy like Tocchet. If you just want to, like, first of all, had a really stressful season. Things have not gone swimmingly with the Vancouver Canucks. Like, if you're talking, like, I know a guy like him will want to jump right back into it and get right back in, because like guys like that are wired, that they need that. They need to care who wins and loses a game. They still have that competitive passion. But I really do wonder. I can't see any of those elite level head coaches saying, yeah, I'm happy to share the bench. Yeah. There's no way. I just can't see it in the NHL. For small international tournaments, sure. You know, like Four Nations, the Olympics, the World Championships, whenever the World Cup gets fired up. Like, for things like that, absolutely. But I don't know that although, having said that, I think, Bruce Boudreau has always said the only team that he'd be happy to be an assistant for are your Toronto Maple Leafs. Mm-hmm. Zach, what is it about the Toronto Maple Leafs and assistant coaches? Anyhow, great question though. But the short answer, no, I can't see anyone putting it aside. But I'm sure teams have thought about putting together because there's no salary cap for coaches, which other people have brought up before and said, well, hold on a second. Like, if the salary cap is for competitive balance, then how come there's no salary cap for coaches? Some teams can afford the expensive ones, and others are picking off the entry-level guys. If the salary cap was for competitive balance and not just to raise franchise values by fixing costs, he said cynically. And probably accurately. All right,
Zachary.
Zachary.
The point about those guys having egos, I think, is applicable to the best players in the league as well. Totally, it may not be in the traditional sense, but it's got to apply for you to get to that point in your career and in where you are in the NHL. Like, you think Sidney Crosby, as humble as that guy is, doesn't want to be the best player in the NHL every single day? Like, why do you think he trains to be like that? Like, there's an ego level to it.
Has to be. But that's okay for competitive sports.
Yeah, 100%. Agree.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's awesome. And that's the way they're wired, and that's how they get there. Like, I've always maintained, like, you don't make it to the NHL by accident. Like, you don't make it to the NHL by being passive and just surfing on skill. You can't. How many, like, honestly, Zach, how many guys did you play with in growing up playing hockey that you looked at and you went, like, this guy's the most amazing player I've ever seen. He's not even going to get close to the NHL, because at a certain point, the skill stops and everyone can skate as fast as you and everyone can shoot as hard as you. What else are you giving me? And there's some guys that give you all of it, that'll give you all of it. The Nathan McKinnons of the world, the Sidney Crosbys of the world, the Connor McDavids of the world.
Robert Thomas.
The Robert Thomases of the world. Anyone else from ISC you want to mention? Yeah, I know. Okay.
Morgan Frost, Quinn Byfield.
I know. Here we
Connor
go.
McDavid, Sam Bennett.
Sean Walker, I know. Aaron Ambrose as well from PWH. It was her birthday yesterday, by the way. It's her birthday, by the way. Aaron Ambrose.
Yes.
Did you call her and wish her happy birthday?
No.
You're a bad producer.
I did not
She's part of
call
our
her.
family here. She's part of our family.
Yes, she
here.
is.
You might want to send a late text, Zach.
Yes.
All
Yes.
Thanks for joining us here today on the program. Thanks to everybody in the chat, everybody listening on your favorite podcast platform. Very much appreciated. Or if you're watching our little chimp act here on YouTube, where you saw this lovely picture. This Joe Meloche picture was actually a Christmas present from my boss now, but former podcast producer with 32, Amel Delich. And I love it. It's one of my favorite possessions. And I'm not a big, you know me, I'm not a big hockey collector of things like that. But like an autographed Joe Meloche picture of him like making a great save in that Seals uniform, like, come on, man. How do I say no to that? It's gorgeous. So thank you, Amel. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the games tonight. We are back tomorrow. It's Friday. And that means Berkey Day. Get your questions in either by email at thesheet@thenationnetwork.com. That's also for the crispy inbox. thesheet@thenationnetwork.com. DM me. Text me if you got my number. Send us a note on social media, whether it's Blue Sky, whether it's Twitter X. Doesn't matter. We're all over these. Instagram. Take your pick. And we'll talk to Berkey tomorrow on the show. And it could be a very interesting day for our producer, Zach. By the way, Zach, you at Greta Bar tonight?
No. No Greta tonight. Shows
Okay.
from home.
Okay.
Jay Rosehill is on the post game. So win or lose, I mean, even if you're not a Leafs fan, tonight will be must see. I'm telling you that. Win or lose, it will be a must see. The Leafs Nation
awesome.
YouTube channel for Leafs Nation After Dark.
Love it.
Posey will be one way or the other. He'll be to the extreme with me, I believe. So we'll see.
He's the crispy inbox. Okay. Thank you, bud. Enjoy that. If you're tuned in, enjoy the games. We're back tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern. Don't forget tomorrow. Oh, no, wait, it's Friday. So no Leafs morning, no morning cup of hockey. But you will get DFO
They're on
Live
tomorrow.
at noon.
They're on tomorrow.
Oh, they are on tomorrow?
Yeah,
I should probably
they're
get
in
like
the
a
playoffs,
list
Monday to
of
Friday.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're doing that on Friday. So tomorrow, here we go. Take two. As I was saying earlier before I was so rudely interrupted by Zach Phillips, morning cup of hockey tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern. Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen, DFO Live at noon, and our little act here at 3 o'clock Eastern on your Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Please like, please subscribe, and please have a great rest of your day. This ends my broadcasting day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.